Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Porter, and I'm going to tell you about a survey study conducted at Berea College in the spring of 2018. The survey came out of conversations in the classroom and several suppositions that we had about the tension between academic freedom and protection from hostile environments. From the beginning, I'd like to state that both academic freedom and hostile environment protection reflect values in the Enlightenment, incorporated in the U.S. Constitution. Academic freedom comes from the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, and protection from hostile environments comes from the Civil Rights Act of 1964. College and universities administrators have many constraints on the choices that they make and the policies and programs designed to develop and support both academic freedom, diversity, and inclusion. In recent years, postmodernism and cancel culture have made this task all the more difficult. By urging college and universities administrations to side with the mob and hecklers, they have in effect minimized support for academic freedom, and the balance between the two has been lost. Many people have written about this. Here are 5 of the best books that I found addressing the current crises on campuses. Beware, though, cancel culture has identified some of these authors as being dangerous and made efforts to cancel or prevent them from expressing their viewpoints. Lukianoff and Haidt, in their very popular book, The Coddling of the American Mind, set forth the proposition that certain truths have been twisted or convoluted by postmodernism and socialism into bad ideas. And these have formed the basis of a number of consequences that have set up this generation for failure. The truths on the left are generalizations and generally supported by evidence. The bad ideas are these same ideas turned inside out and upside down. How to study this? The scientific method is a good answer, but as Lee McIntyre points out, there's a scientific attitude that is a prerequisite and underlies the scientific method. It is basically the collection and respect for evidence and being willing to adjust theories accordingly. Anytime one starts research or a study, it's good to identify what the variables are, how they might be measured, and how they would relate to one another. It's also important to recognize that local phenomena often are different from national phenomena. Sewell Wright in 1921, as a junior faculty member at Harvard, really elaborated on the notion of path analysis, a way of combining reason and logic with statistical rigor. Cohen and Cohen in 1983 reintroduced his ideas in a very popular text. In 2017, John Villaseñor of UCLA surveyed 1,500 public university students. He found that a willingness and support for suppressing the speech of others was really at a very high level. He also found a lot of students reported being intimidated by this political correctness. The survey study our class developed sought to explore these phenomena on the local level. Basically, we used a Qualtrics anonymous response option and 6-point Likert scaled items. We measured many different demographic, declarative, implicit measures of identity, beliefs, perceptions, and judgments. Related. Special thanks to senior administrators and faculty members who reviewed early drafts of the survey and provided feedback. We had many variables. Some of these variables were themselves indexes derived from averages of subjects' responses to many different things. Both the perception and the judgment variables were implicit measures derived from responses to over 20 different scenarios. We also found that at Berea College, the identification of oneself as being very liberal was closely associated with a willingness to suppress the speech of others. The path analytic structure included all these variables, 3 demographic variables, 1 general belief variable, the AOBS variable, 2 specific beliefs about hostile environment protection and academic freedom, and then used these indexes of perception and judgments. A word about how we measured implicit perception and implicit judgment. These were measures that were implied by regularity in performance. We presented scenarios. This is one of 20 actual scenarios that we used. Once subjects had read the scenario, we asked if the situation described was in fact a hostile environment. Afterwards, we asked whether or not the activity that created the environment could or would be protected by academic freedom. Here are the initial results of that one item. As you can see, most people disagreed that it was a hostile environment and did agree that it should be protected by academic freedom. However, it's also worth noting that there was a small minority who strongly disagreed with these majority opinions. The correlation table shows at the very top that explicit support for academic freedom was very strong. Explicit support for hostile environment protection with a 4.6 on a 6-point scale was not quite as strong. The correlation table itself shows us that race didn't correlate with nearly any other variable, and the AOBS, activist-oriented belief system, correlated with almost every other variable in our study. Here's the path analysis. We'll go through this in several steps. Along the bottom is the logical or conceptual basis for sorting out our variables. The 3 variables on the left, race, gender, and sexual orientation, approximated the official measures of these variables in the demographic data. We found the general belief, activist-oriented belief system was predicted by both gender and sexual orientation. These were main effects. We described nearly a quarter of the variance. Of these, sexual orientation was the stronger. Basically, heterosexual males had the lowest AOBS scores, and lesbians had the highest scores. This AOBS general belief predicted specific beliefs. Those with high AOBS scores tended to support hostile environment protection, but not support academic freedom. The relationship between hostile environment support and academic freedom support, on the other hand, was positive. People who supported one tended to support the other. What we were really interested in was how all of these variables predicted the perception of hostile environments. And here you can see over half of the variance was predicted by gender AOBS and hostile environment explicit support. The next question was academic freedom. What we found was that while there was a small positive relationship with explicit support, people who said they supported academic freedom with making judgments that academic freedom would apply, the hostile environment perception was by far and away a more important influence. Convergent evidence comes from institutional research. Graduation rates and retention had been declining slightly. Most of these declines, as shown in yellow on the slide, were for groups that might be identified as being more traditional or more conservative than their classmates. Our conclusions is that it is necessary to measure local implications, that sometimes what people say and what they see, do, and decide may differ, and the AOBS system and the heckler's veto may threaten academic freedom. Thanks for your time and attention. I appreciate it. Here are a couple of references if you want to learn more about the study or more about my case. I would encourage you to do so. Thank you again.